You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. And as ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, here to look ahead to Arsenal's game with Wolverhampton Wanderers, scheduled to take place at Emirates Stadium on Thursday night. Big game, as is every game for Arsenal in the Premier League now. We've got real hope and real aspirations around this top four finish now. Hope and aspiration that I've got to say, I didn't really have at the start of the season, but as things have gone on, as things have moved, as Arsenal have, progressed, and as the teams around us have given up points left, right, and centre, the door is open, and it feels like something we could potentially go on to achieve. And if we could manage that, I think that would have exceeded many people's expectations this season. So there's lots to be positive about, lots to be excited about, and I can't wait to preview this game. Big hello to everybody joining us in the live chat on YouTube at the moment. Just a quick message for the members. Do not fear, the members mailbag will be dropping for you guys tomorrow. I just felt it was probably more time sensitive. This piece of content was probably more time sensitive in terms of getting it out with plenty of time for you guys to take it in ahead of the game. So I thought I'd put this one out first, and we'll get that members mailbag episode out to you tomorrow at around about lunchtime on match day. So you'll have something to get into and maybe take your mind away from the upcoming game against Wolves and give you a bit of a break or whatever, Anyway, okay, let's look ahead to this one. Arsenal versus Wolves at Emirates Stadium. And as things stand, just 2 points separate the two sides in the table. The Gunners currently on 42 points, Wolves on 40. And of course, remember, Wolves have played a game more than us. Now, they'll be looking to come to the Emirates and avenge the result that we got just a couple of weeks back. There was lots of side stories to this game, wasn't there? There's the added spice off the back of Ruben Neves and some other Wolves players complaining about the way Arsenal celebrated the victory. There's obviously, from an Arsenal perspective, there's a feeling of being hard done by. Gabriel Martinelli, who of course was unavailable for the game against Brentford due to, let's put it this way, a questionable sending off over at Molineux. There's a little bit more needle now to this fixture than there probably ever has been. Of course, Raul Jimenez returns to the ground where he suffered that horrible injury. I'm trying to think, has he been back in a playing capacity since? Maybe not. But anyway, there's that as well. There's so many different side stories to this game, and it's what makes it a really, really fascinating encounter. Remember, Arsenal don't play at the weekend again, which means for us, there's no excuse. We've got to go out there. We've got to be at full tilt, full pelt. The last game was on Saturday. So, we've had ample time to recover. We've had ample time, I think, to work on a tactical plan for this fixture. But if I had to give you kind of my initial thoughts and initial feelings without really going too deep on the tactical side of this one, it feels like it's going to be quite cagey. It feels like it's going to be a really intense and tight encounter. We know that Wolves defensively are brilliant. We know that Arsenal defensively have improved dramatically. And therefore, I'm expecting a game of few goals. I'm expecting a game in which both sides are obviously trying to win it, but mindful of gaps and spaces that they might leave in behind. Arsenal were really, really aggressive against Brentford. And that was obviously a positive. And in many ways, it's the way you need to play against a side that comes and sets up with a low block. I expect Wolves, for the most part, to set up with a low block as well. And for Wolves to be quite happy to, for example, leave Emirates Stadium with a point. But, you can't be as gung-ho as we were against Brentford, against the team of Wolves' quality. The likes of Jimenez, who I've mentioned. Daniel Podence is a brilliant player as well. He's been in fine form. There's Neves, there's Moutinho, who, of course, was missing when we played them a couple of weeks back. So I think, for me, we still need to take risks. We're at home. The onus is on us to go out and win the game. And if we do win the game, it puts us in a very, very good position. But there's a part of me that feels like we're going to need to be a little bit more calculated in the way we take those risks than we were at the weekend. You always felt at the weekend that, we had enough and that Brentford were going to offer very little the other way. Wolves are a different outfit. Wolves are a much better side. They're a much more complete side. And so I think that this is a fixture that Arsenal need to approach slightly differently. Now, of course, Mikel Arteta was talking in the press conference today, and he revealed that there are no fresh injury concerns, which is obviously good. We don't want any more of those. In fact, we're so paper thin that we're pretty much hoping that we don't get any between now and the end of the season, because we know that one or two here or there could derail our season. So I think that's going to be kind of something that makes us really nervous from week to week, looking ahead to Mikel Arteta's press conferences and hoping he says those very nice words. There are no fresh injury concerns. That's what we'll be looking for moving forward. He was also asked about his new contract, and there's been some talk about that over the last couple of months. Is Mikel Arteta on the verge of signing a new deal with the Arsenal? And Mikel, as usual when it comes to matters of that nature, was very coy on his future. He said he's happy at the club. He's enjoying what we're building. He's enjoying taking this team on and doing the work he's doing. He seemed really relaxed about it, but I thought there was a really relaxed attitude from Mikel Arteta today throughout the press conference. And that's nice to see because I think at times he's been a little bit edgy in the past. He's been a little bit prickly. I know he always shuts certain questions down, and he's become very good at that. But there were times where he used to come across as a bit prickly and irritating. I'm not talking about his stubble. I'm talking about his character. And now to see him kind of a little bit more relaxed is obviously a sign of the fact that things are going better than maybe they were previously, but also that maybe he's learned how to cope with the pressure of being in his position, and he's learned to cope with the media a little bit better as well. So I see a manager who is developing not just on the pitch, but off of it as well, as a character and as someone who is obviously in the limelight and is forced to deal with at times some really, really difficult questions. There are some questions around the team selection. There's a couple of positions in particular that I want to talk about, and we're going to get your thoughts in the live chat as well. So let's do it. Let's dive over, and we'll take some of your questions in a little bit. So if you've got questions, just hold fire on those so that they don't get lost in the chat, and I will make sure that I pick up as many of those as I possibly can. So my team to face Wolverhampton Wanderers at Emirates Stadium tomorrow night, Thursday night, is Aaron Ramsdale in goal. I've named three of my back four: Tierney, Gabriel and White. Xhaka and Partey will be in the defensive midfield positions, although that is likely in possession to become a little bit more like this, with Odegaard shifting to the right, Partey holding that midfield by himself, and Granit Xhaka just stepping that bit further forward. We saw that a lot against Brentford, and we highlighted it in the tactical review of the game. I know I've showed you this 101 times over the last 48 hours, but if you look at the average positions that Arsenal took up against Brentford, it was very much like that. Xhaka and Odegaard pushed forward, one on the right, one on the left, with Thomas Partey holding up that midfield. Now, I would argue that with Wolves' quality in midfield, you're going to have to see Xhaka slot in alongside Thomas Partey a lot more than he would have done against Brentford. And that's natural. I talked about it after the game. I said that Xhaka will be able to get away with what he was doing in a game like the Brentford one, but he won't be able to do that every week. And what this gives us is a bit of versatility. And what you want in an ideal world eventually is to have a midfielder that is as adept going forward as he is sort of slotting in alongside Thomas Partey as well. Granit Xhaka isn't really that guy for me, as much as I've praised him, as much as I've defended him from some really, I feel, harsh criticism over the years. I think that he's someone that's being asked to do something that fits the system, but it's not something that necessarily fits him. And I think that eventually we will be looking to upgrade in that position. And when we get that player, it will take things up to a much higher level. But the good thing about him is that he is quite comfortable slotting in alongside Thomas Partey there and providing a bit of a defensive screen. And I think that it's going to be important he and Thomas Partey can control the midfield and can keep the combination of Ruben Neves and João Moutinho, if that's who João Bruno Lage, sorry, goes with, it's important that he keeps those two guys quiet. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, there's also a chance that they throw Dendoncker in there as well, who's quite physical, quite robust. And I think you're going to need Partey and Xhaka to be on top of their game. If they can control that area of the park with the help of Martin Odegaard dropping in, with the help of Lacazette dropping in, and with Gabriel and White squeezing right up to the halfway line, there is no reason why Arsenal can't really stamp their authority on this game and put Wolverhampton Wanderers to the sword. So, yeah, that's what I'd go with in the midfield. Odegaard, of course, in the number 10 role. Saka from the right, Laka through the middle. But there's a couple of positions that I think there are question marks over going into this fixture. One of them is at right back. Now, Cedric Suarez had a good game against Brentford, but we got to remember it was Brentford. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to the player, but I think defensively, he will have a lot more questions asked of him by Wolves, just like he did in the meeting a few weeks ago. And I'm not sure that I would pick him ahead of Takahiro Tomiyasu if the Japanese international is fit. But we know he's been out for a while. I don't know whether Mikel Arteta will want to ease him back into things. And given Cedric's form, he might feel that he can get away with leaving him on the bench and potentially introducing him late on in the game just to give him some minutes and get him back up to speed. There's a part of me that thinks that's the smart thing to do, because you don't want to lead to the player causing some more damage to, his issue, which is an ongoing issue, by the way. We don't want to see him cause further damage and then be out for a longer period of time, because he is really important to the side. You think about the fact that with Callum Chambers gone, he's also a bit of a centre-back option for us as well. So I think that if there is any question mark about his fitness, I'd probably go with Cedric. But if he is fully fit, he would have had another 4 or 5 days of full training under his belt between the Brentford game and today and tomorrow, then I think he should play. If he's up to it, then play him, because he is better defensively, and I think we're a better team with him in it. So that would be my back four, assuming that Tomiyasu is past fit to play. It would be Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel, and Tierney. Xhaka and Partey in the midfield, Odegaard in the 10 role, Saka from the right, Lacazette through the middle. And the other question is, who plays from the left? Now, Gabriel Martinelli had been in really, really good form prior to that sending off at Wolves. He missed out on Brentford, and as a result, Emile Smith-Rowe came back in. But Emile Smith-Rowe was brilliant again. And Emile Smith-Rowe is our top goal scorer. And as I said to you guys a few days ago, it feels to me like Emile Smith-Rowe is just at that point where he's more likely to get us over the line in games than Gabriel Martinelli. And that's not to criticize the Brazilian. I think he's fantastic. I think he gives us something different. But if it were me, I would start with Emile Smith-Rowe from the left-hand side, and Gabriel Martinelli would be someone I'd be looking at as an option for later on in the game. He'll be eager to put what happened at Wolves right. He'll be chomping at the bit, but I just think Emile Smith-Rowe gives us a little bit more of a goal threat at the moment. And I think that because he played so well on Saturday, it would send the wrong message to drop him. I think, as I've said with Mike on the show recently, for me, it's important that when a player comes in and does well, that they're rewarded for that, and they are, the manager keeps the faith with them. I think that's really important. So he would continue from the left for me. So that's my team to face Wolves at the Emirates Stadium on Thursday. Of course, the little caveat is Tomiyasu going to be fit enough? So it's Ramsdale in goal, Tomiyasu at right back, White and Gabriel at centre back with Tierney on the left, Xhaka and Partey in the middle with Odegaard, Saka from the right, Emile Smith-Rowe from the left, and Lacazette up front. Now, a lot of you, I'd imagine, are going to say that you would be quite happy to see Gabriel Martinelli through the middle as a striker. And, he's been talking in a piece with The Athletic about the fact that he's happy to play anywhere for the team, but that he's always played wide, growing up. I still think that Lacazette, despite the lack of goals at this moment in time, he just gives us so much. And I would be reluctant to take him out. I really would be. I keep saying it. I think he facilitates a lot of the good work that is done by Saka, Smith-Rowe, Odegaard, Martinelli when he's on the pitch. So I think that Laka needs to play up front. I think Martinelli, if he did play there, would give us more of a threat in behind. And I think in a game maybe away from home where you're playing against the side that you expect to have the lion's share of possession and you're wanting to hit people on the break, I think Martinelli would be a better option in that scenario. But I fully expect Wolves to come to Emirates Stadium, not be negative, because that's probably the wrong term, but to sit quite deep in terms of their starting position and to almost say to Arsenal, we've got 3 centre-backs, 2 wing-backs, and a 3-man flat midfield. You break us down. And I think in this scenario, the kind of striker who can play with his back to goal, who can link up with people, is probably going to be more valuable than someone like Martinelli, who I believe is at his best when he's got space to run into, when he's played in behind, where he's given the opportunity to dribble. I think he could find himself quite isolated up against Wolves' centre halves. And so I'd go with Laka on this occasion. Okay, let's take some of your thoughts. Let's take some of your questions from the live chat. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to the Chronicles of a Gooner YouTube channel if you're new, and if you're listening to us via any other platform, give us a subscribe, give us a like, and leave us a review. It is very, very much appreciated. Okay, let's get some of those questions. But before we do that, if you're listening via the audio platforms, we're going to take just a short pause for a message from our sponsor. Okay, let's get into it. Plenty of questions coming through from you guys. Let me start working my way down there. Here we go. Luke Williams. With Arteta talking about Emile Smith-Rowe as a false 9, do you think he would take the risk and try it out in this game? I don't. I think that for me, it's pretty clear that Mikel Arteta's preference is to have Alexander Lacazette playing through the middle. He's the one that gives him what he's looking for in a centre forward in terms of, link up play, in terms of pressing, in terms of being robust enough to kind of win free kicks and sort of manipulate certain situations in and around the penalty area. He's experienced. He's one of the leaders on the pitch. I think that wherever possible, Alexander Lacazette will be on the pitch. I only think we need to worry about what happens when he's not playing, when he's unavailable, because I don't think he'll be left out unless he goes through a really rancid run of form. I don't think he'll be left out of choice. That's my personal view, my personal opinion. I think that Emile Smith-Rowe is somebody that Mikel Arteta probably views as quite versatile. And I think that was kind of the point he was making, that he is versatile, that there's no reason why he can't do that role, as opposed to, yes, I'm going to pick him there and I'm going to play him there. So I think we need to be careful of maybe not reading into, be mindful and wary of reading into that comment a little bit too much. I don't expect him to try it out in this game. I don't know when there is really a game that you could try it out at the moment, because Arsenal are basically playing cup finals every week. But as I said to Mike Stavru on yesterday's show, which you can catch up with on the channel if you haven't done so already, it's something I'd like to see again, because I think when we saw it last time against Villarreal in the Champions League, when we saw it when Arsenal were at a very, very different stage of their development, it didn't work. But Emile Smith-Rowe's come on leaps and bounds since then. Arsenal have come on leaps and bounds. We've got the structure to kind of facilitate that more fluid approach positionally in the attacking positions. And I'm not saying I want to see it in the Premier League just yet. I'm not saying that I want to see it against Wolves on Thursday, but I am saying that I'm curious to see how it would work with this team and with this Emile Smith-Rowe, as opposed to kind of saying, well, it didn't work last time when we weren't good enough, and it didn't work when Emile Smith-Rowe was still learning and developing. So I'll never look at it ever again. I'll never be open-minded to it. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen this week. Casper Petersen says, question, did you find the Leicester versus Wolves game appealing considering the way Wolves played, which in my opinion was quite poor? It's a weird one with Wolves, right? First of all, Casper, I didn't watch this game in full. I watched Leeds versus Manchester United on Sunday, and after a Saturday full of football, I decided that I was going to have the afternoon off and save it to watch some Serie A in the evening. So I didn't see the game in full, but obviously what I gauged from the game was that Leicester were very much the better side. Wolves quite defensive, quite negative, maybe partly because they couldn't impose themselves on Leicester City, but, they were disappointing, but they got the result. And if you think back to the opening 3 games of the season, I think it was, Wolves lost all of them. And Wolves were being criticized because of the results, but everybody was coming away going, well, they're performing really well. They're playing some really nice and exciting stuff. And when I saw them at the start of the season, I always found them quite exciting to watch, quite interesting to watch. And that was weird to me because under Nuno, I had this impression of a very functional side, a very sort of, no frills side who just get on with the job at hand and are quite difficult to beat, tactically quite astute and aware, but not exactly going to get you off your seat. So Bruno Lage will probably argue, well, when we were playing that way and we were playing the way that everybody wanted us to play, we weren't getting results. And now that they've become just a little bit more pragmatic, because I do think there are still a lot of players in that Wolves side that I very much enjoy watching. There are still players with plenty of flair, plenty of quality. So I don't want to sit there and say, oh, they're boring and they're negative and that be that. I don't think that's fair. But yeah, from what I read and from the highlights I saw, it didn't look as though they were particularly good against Leicester. And maybe that's something we should take encouragement from. Okay, let's keep moving through your questions. Keep them coming. Dramatic12 says, hello, Harry. Going back to when we were talking about the team selection. He says, when's the last time we had a problem like this where we don't know who to pick for certain positions because players are having outstanding performances? You are absolutely spot on. It's a good problem to have, right? It's a good issue to have, to be able to sort of sit there and sort of mull over these decisions is a sign that you've got lots of quality, lots of talent. And then to be able to turn to some of that talent from the bench in games where it's not necessarily clicking or working out for some of those already out on the field is a great advantage to have as a manager. So yeah, you're right. And it's great to be in that position. Brad Richardson says, do we play with a striker? Because Lacazette looks more a false 9. I think Lacazette is a striker, but he does have characteristics that you would normally find in a false 9. I think we've got to be careful not to put too many labels on players, not to become obsessed with he's a false 9 or he's a centre forward. The job that he's been asked to do, I'll put it this way, is a very specific one. And it's why I think that Arsenal can't just go out and sign a centre forward that the fans want this summer. There has to be a real sort of, it has to be someone who's, if not there now, who has the ability to become a specialist in what Mikel Arteta is asking. Because that's my problem with some of the options that have been bandied about. Like Dominic Calvert-Lewin is one that people have talked about so much over the last 6 months. Yeah, he's a threat in the box and he's big and he's strong and he's physical and he closes people down and he'd be quite good if you work the ball into wide areas and threw crosses into the penalty area. But does he have the tactical awareness of Alexander Lacazette? Will he be able to drop into those deeper positions and give you something defensively, but also be mindful of allowing and vacating spaces for others to work into, the likes of Saka and Smith Rowe? I just think for me, it's so important that Arsenal go and get the right kind of striker this summer, that I'm kind of, maybe I'm talking myself out of some of the options that we're being linked with because I don't see the attributes necessarily that fit into this team. A big example of that is Jonathan David. I know I'm going to upset one of our members, Moss, in the chat, who's a massive Jonathan David fan. He's probably complained to my employers because I wrote a piece earlier today about why I don't think Jonathan David is the solution for Arsenal. So let me take that opportunity while we're on this question of a striker to kind of address A, what we need, and B, why I don't think Jonathan David is that guy. Well, I want someone who gives us a few more goals. And it sounds like I'm asking for everything. All right. And I know that's not always fair. I want someone who's going to produce more goals than Alexander Lacazette without taking away all the good things that he does. And when I say taking away goals when I say produces more goals than Lacazette, I appreciate that some of the lack of goals is because of the other stuff he does and the fact that he finds himself in different positions. And those positions are not always positions that you're likely to score goals from. But he's not clinical enough. And opportunities have come his way that a top striker takes and Lacazette hasn't been taking. And that could come back and bite us in the arse. I really don't want to be in that predicament, in that position. So I'm looking for someone who either is just as good as Lacazette in the build-up play and has the room to grow and develop and then go on to score more goals, or someone who already scores more goals and has the potential to develop their build-up play. I need one or the other. And with Lacazette, I'm getting the build-up play. With Jonathan David, I'd be getting goals, but mind you, not as many goals as people think. And I did some research on this. I think it was he scores a goal every 2.83 games. So it's basically 1 in 3. Is that prolific in the French Ligue 1 with Lille? I would argue that it's not as prolific as I'd like it to be. And so I'm not sure about Jonathan David. But if you want some in-depth analysis on that and some in-depth kind of thoughts on that, you can check out my article, which went out on 90min.com earlier today. I've tweeted it out. The link is there. So you can find it. In fact, I think I'll pop the link in the chat here as well. And if you want to have a little read of that later on, then feel free to do so. And feel free to jump on Twitter and basically rip the shit out of me if you disagree as well, because there will be plenty of that, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm just not sure about Jonathan David, and I'm not sure about some of the players we're being linked with. Lacazette's role, I don't want to call him a false 9, and I don't want to call him an out-and-out striker. I don't want to put a label on it, basically. Yeah, that's the right thing. Okay, let's see what else you guys have got. Omar Yahia says prediction. Okay. I said 1-0 to the Arsenal at Wolves. I can't remember what I said about Brentford. Did I say 2-0? I think I said 2-0. That went to shit. I'm going to go 1-0 to the Arsenal again. I think it will be difficult. I think they'll be tough to break down. I think we'll have to be patient. I think we'll have to make sure that we stay defensively switched on, which is something that we have been able to do more often than not in recent times, and just trust in our attacking ability and trust that we'll get the opportunities to put the game to bed and to take all 3 points, because it would be a really valuable 3 points. It would buy us some breathing space before, and take us away from Wolves a little bit whilst keeping the pressure on those above us. Steve says, Harry, I believe the points are far more important than the performance. Winning ugly is okay by me. Do you agree? Yeah, look, everybody wants to see a performance. I turn up to the Emirates Stadium wanting to see a performance. Of course I do. I want to enjoy being at the football, but first and foremost, it's about the result. And first and foremost, it's about getting over the line. And I just think that what we've seen with this Arsenal side, and one of the big positives, is that we now have the ability to win ugly, and it wasn't there before. And why wasn't it there before? Because we were never defensively good enough to get a scrappy goal and that be that. It was never the case. It was always, well, we'd have to be at our best, and we know we're going to probably concede at least 1, maybe 2, and so we're going to have to score at least 2, maybe 3 to win the game. So to be in this position where we're quite trusting of the back line and trusting of the defensive capabilities of this side is new territory. And it gives us confidence that even when we're not at our best, we can, we can win ugly, which is important. Okay, let's take a few more of your questions, a few hellos as well. Lots of you joining us in the chat box from all over the world. You know what we'll do? Towards the end of the show, I'm going to ask you to let me know where it is that you are joining us from, because I'm always interested to see the variety, which is brilliant. Omar, in response to my prediction, you and your 1-0. Look, that's how I feel, man. Eli M says, what celebratory song should the Arsenal DJ play at full time when we stuff Wolves? Do you know what? Stadium music irritates me now, because there's you just hear the same songs over and over again, and then you get fed up of songs that you maybe once liked, and now you don't ever want to hear them again. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, not a fan. Not a fan of stadium music. It's, I don't want to hear Sweet Caroline and all that rubbish that we hear all the time. Bit of Neil Diamond. No, not interested. I don't know, something lively, so we can all go mad and show Ruben Neves what he's missing by not coming to the Arsenal. Aditya says, hey Harry, what do you think about the João Felix links? They're a little ambitious, but he has stagnated recently and would add so much depth to an already quality attack. I think what's going to be really interesting is what happens with Diego Simeone. I think that he's taken that team to a new level. He's taken that club to a new level. He's won, 2 La Liga titles, which would have been unheard of prior to his arrival because of Real Madrid and Barcelona's dominance. He has taken them to 2 Champions League finals, I believe, which is more than we've been to ever during his tenure, which is really, really impressive. And I think a lot of the players that would have signed for Atletico Madrid, would have been signing because of the fact that they're a massive, massive club. But I think Diego Simeone's role in that will have been huge. He's contracted until 2024, Simeone. And there are murmurs coming out of Spain that he might walk away at the end of this season, in which case that leaves a lot of those players that join the club for Diego Simeone in limbo. And because of the financial situation that they find themselves in, you could end up in a place where you can prize these people away. I've always heard a lot of hype around João Felix, and when I've watched him, at times I've thought he looks okay, but I've never really been wowed. And that could be because I don't watch him much, okay? I'm not sitting here saying he's a bad player, not by any stretch of the imagination. But it's not a signing or a potential signing that really kind of jumps out at me. Now, I know Mikel Arteta is said, according to the reports, to be quite interested in him and a big admirer of his. If that's the case, then I trust Mikel to do what is right, because his recruitment last summer, whatever you think about him, whatever you think about Edu, whatever you think about the Cronkies, was spot on. And for me, he's earned the right now in this upcoming summer to go out and do what he thinks is right with the support of the club and with the support of us as fans. So, yeah, I'm not sort of jumping up and down at the prospect of João Felix, but player with a lot of potential, player with a lot of ability, a player who probably just needs the right man to get it out of him. And in Diego Simeone's sometimes negative style of football, I think he can get a little. I think attacking talent can sometimes be, shackled because of the responsibilities that they've got in other areas of the field. I remember listening to an interview recently with Yannick Carrasco of Atletico Madrid. I think it was before they played Liverpool in the Champions League, and everybody was sort of talking about, or everybody was asking him sort of like, what's it like playing for Diego Simeone? What's it like working under him? And Yannick Carrasco, he pulled no punches. He said, it's about defense first. And as an attacking player, that's not your normal mindset. That's not the way you want to be thinking. And I think for me, that really kind of hit home, because it made me think about how many good attacking players have gone to Atletico over the years and obviously produced and performed and taken their chances when they've come and fired Atletico to where they are today. But the fact that all of them might not have been completely happy in doing the role that Diego Simeone had asked of them, just because it goes against their natural inclinations or thoughts or ideas as a forward. So, yeah, maybe he needs the shackles taken off him, because you are right, in terms of what we thought he was going to be and where he is today, there has been a slight stagnation. Hardik Sharma says, Harry, are you going to see the match against Wolves? I am. I obviously didn't get to the Emirates on Saturday and my heart was aching. That happens to me. When I'm not there, I feel like, I just feel like something's missing. And I know that I'm in an extremely fortunate position that I can go. I know there's so many big Arsenal fans all over the world that can't go or that can't get tickets. So I'm, I know that it's a really privileged position to be in, but it hurt not being there at the weekend. So I'm glad that there's a home game just around the corner for me to get back to. Okay, let's pick up some more of your thoughts, some more of your questions. Stephen Foote says, what about Scamacca and Patrick Schick as a front two next season? Interesting. Scamacca has been obviously heavily linked, as has Patrick. Actually, I don't think Patrick Schick has been as heavily linked. I think that's one that the fans have kind of come up with because of how well he's doing in the Bundesliga. But not sure I'd break the bank for either of those. My personal opinion. Not a popular one, I know. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Elliot Roberts says, you are unsure about Jonathan David, and yet you are sure about Arteta. Make it make sense. Hashtag 8th place is enough. First of all, at no point ever doing this job have I said that 8th place is enough. So as I see it, you're arguing against the point that you yourself have made. Nobody here has said that 8th place is enough. Second of all, I'm unsure about Jonathan David because I don't think that he is at the level that Arsenal require today. Now, what I'm saying here is, and let me be clear on this, and you know what, I'll probably do a video on it, but in a nutshell, the point I'm making is that when Edu sat down in front of the Sky cameras at the start of the season after that dreadful start, he said that the next phase, or hinted that the next phase in the rebuild, would be to bring in world-class players to complement the young core that we've built, to take this team up to another level and elevate the standard immediately. Does Jonathan David do that? No, he doesn't, because he's playing a worse league than the Premier League, a far worse league in terms of competitiveness, in terms of difficulty. I know he's young and I know he's got room to grow and I know he's got time to develop, but he's less prolific on paper, statistically, as a Lille striker than Alexander Lacazette is as an Arsenal striker. Alexander Lacazette, who we all criticize every single week as someone who doesn't score enough goals. So if I go and break the bank and bring someone in who's less prolific, and there are no guarantees that he can give me the same level of build-up play, there is a massive element of risk there. And I'm not sure why people can't see that. I get that people like him. I get that people, have him earmarked, and that's fine. That's their opinion. But my opinion is that there's no guarantee the Jonathan David signing works. I know I always say that there's a risk with any signing that you make, but I just think we've got some serious gems in Martinelli, in Saka, in Odegaard. And we need a top striker to come in and complement them whilst also contributing more himself in terms of goals than what we're currently getting. And I think that there's a risk in the Jonathan David signing. Paul James says, Harry, David's hold-up play is outstanding. His running off the ball is good. His pressing is insane, and he has room to grow. You clearly haven't seen enough of him to comment. Do you watch Ligue 1? I don't watch it regularly, no. But I'm allowed to do research, and I'm allowed to have an opinion on a player. It's part of my job. You don't have to agree with that opinion, and a lot of people don't, and I know that, and that's fine. But, I mean, it's not an outrageous view to have. It's not an outrageous view to have question marks around a striker who scores at international level, but is playing in a continent where the competition is weaker than it is in Europe. That's fact. That's not being disrespectful. That's not being critical. That's fact. Right? He's playing on a continent where, on an international stage, where the level is lower. He scored goals in Belgium. He's moved to France, which is a step up from Belgium, but still isn't the Premier League. And he's still not as prolific as I want my next striker to be. Nor is he as effective in his build-up play. Now, you can say that he's really effective in the build-up play, Okay, and I appreciate and accept that the eye test gives you a lot as well. But this is a guy, and I'll just bring up the statistic because I looked this up earlier, and I, as I said, I put a piece together on the 90 Min website. 82 appearances, 29 goals. It's less than 1 in 3, but that's fine. We'll take that. But he's only mustered 5 assists in that time. 5. That's not enough. That suggests to me that he's not as involved in the build-up play as Alexander Lacazette is. And so I have reservations around whether I'd like to see Arsenal go and spend £45 million plus to bring this guy in, when I think there are options out there who would be less of a risk and who could come in and bring us more instantly. It's just my view. It's not personal to Jonathan David. It's not personal to the league he plays in. It's not, a criticism of his national. It's not a criticism of anything other than, if I were Arsenal, if it were me, and that's what I do, I'm paid to give my opinions on Arsenal and football. In my opinion, it is a big gamble, and one that I'm not sure I'd be willing to take. If we signed him, I'm not going to sit here and go mad, and I'm not going to sit there and criticize the decision because, as I said a little bit earlier on in the show, I've given, or I'm willing to give Arsenal the benefit of the doubt in terms of what they do in the transfer market, just because of how right they got it last summer. I think they've earned that. So if we signed him, I'll support him and I'll back him like I do every single Arsenal player. But it's one that I'll look at and I'll be unsure about. I was unsure about Ramsdale. That's turned out to be brilliant. And I'm the first person to turn around and give the club credit for that. So I can accept that I can be wrong. And I accept that my opinion is not always fact and not always truth. But I just don't see it with Jonathan David. And that's my view. But anyway, okay, I think we are going to leave it there because a little bit pushed for time. I will be live on the Flash Score app from 7:25, bringing you live commentary of Burnley versus Tottenham. Remember, that game is not on television in the UK. So if you want to get some commentary, jump over and you can hear me take you through that game from minute 1 all the way to minute 90 plus. Yeah. Anyway, live on Flash Score from 7:25 for Burnley versus Tottenham, a game that has implications on Arsenal as well. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't done so already. In fact, let's check where we are on the 66 likes. Not quite good enough. Wanted to get to 100. Come on, guys. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. It really, really does help. So please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and we'll be back very soon. You know what? I got to just address this one from Moss, because I love Moss. He's one of our members. He's one of the most active guys in the chat. He's been on the member streams as well. Absolutely love Moss, and he's a huge fan of Jonathan David. So I just want to quickly address this before we jump off. He says, I disagree with your article. You told us all that you did not watch enough to make a judgment. Then he plays Chelsea's Russian money once, and you say he's not right for Arsenal. I just want to be clear. I've been looking into Jonathan David for a few days to put this article together, watching clips, watching highlights, reading stats, looking at different things, reading kind of accounts of him from people I really admire and respect. The game against Chelsea had absolutely no bearing on my opinion. And if you watch my post-match video following the Chelsea game last night, I think I said that. I think I said that I wasn't going to judge Jonathan David based on the game against Chelsea, because it's easy to get lost against Chelsea's 3 centre-backs in a weaker team. So let me just make that clear. My view on Jonathan David has nothing to do with his performance against Chelsea in the Champions League. It really doesn't. It's based on some research I've done in preparation for writing that article over the last sort of few days. So no, I'm not basing it on Chelsea. I promise you. But I've said to you before, Moss, that I'm not sure about him And that's why you've been sending me stuff to have a closer look. So, yeah, is what it is. All right, guys, catch you all a little bit later on. Until next time, take care of yourselves and stay safe. Goodbye.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.